What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're going to be doing another feedback video focusing on a fairly small but also quite annoying thing that I've been experiencing with Modern Warfare 2 since the game launched, or even since the beta. And this is relating to the amount as well as the duration of the lingering smoke and particle effects after an explosion. Now I know there are far bigger issues with this game, but I've already covered those many times in the past, and I just want to be clear, this one isn't a complete game breaker or anything for me, but that doesn't mean that I don't want to share some feedback here. I do think there's some room for improvement in this area. I don't know how easy it would be to adjust this, but I did want to dive into a proper breakdown of this because my feeling in matches was that the explosive smoke effect just lingers for far too long, almost like it seems like there's a smoke grenade when an explosion goes off. And I did want to compare this to Modern Warfare 2019 to see if this really has changed over the years. Is this actually significantly worse or not? And let's just start this off with a baseline of what we're talking about here exactly. When an explosion goes off, like a C4 for instance, we get a pretty big plume of smoke, and it's worth noting this smoke is pretty much completely opaque. You can't see through it at all, at least for the initial bit, and then it does take a fair amount of time for that to dissipate to the point where you can start seeing things. Now, if we time this from the moment that C4 goes off, you'll notice that you can't see anything through that smoke for about 3 seconds or so. At this point, this is where it starts to fade away a little bit, and you can start to see through it, even though there is still going to be smoke present. And while 3 seconds may not seem like a lot, this is Call of Duty we're talking about. A lot can change within a few seconds, a lot happens within 3 seconds. And to top that off, this is just one explosion. Throughout a match, you're seeing explosions go off quite often. And it's also worth noting, this is just a piece of lethal equipment that you spawn in with every single time you respawn. Next, I wanted to take a look at some of the kill streaks, because these are the worst offenders in this area. First, let's take a look at the Mortar strike, and with this you get multiple barrages of Mortar strikes here, and before the smoke from the first impact fades out entirely, the next impact is coming in, and therefore not only is this a lethal kill streak designed to shut an area down by dealing damage in that area, it's also effectively a smokescreen for a fairly large portion of the map while this is going off. And then finally for this breakdown, I also wanted to take a look at a cruise missile, because this is something I notice a lot while playing. When somebody calls a cruise missile in, visibility in that entire area of the map where the cruise missile goes off just disappears for about 10 seconds or so. So again, not only is this a lethal kill streak designed to kill players, it's also effectively a smokescreen for a pretty decent period of time. Now, is this more realistic than the alternative than what we've normally seen in Call of Duty? Yeah, technically this is probably more realistic. There would definitely be lingering smoke and particles from a big explosion like this. But at the end of the day, this is a video game, and in my opinion, this does sort of take away from the gameplay experience, at least to some degree. Again, I do acknowledge this is a fairly nitpicky complaint. This isn't like one of the biggest issues in the game or anything, but it is something I wanted to talk about. And I wanted to know if I was going crazy here. Is this really out of the ordinary for Call of Duty? Well, let's have a look at a comparison with Modern Warfare 2019, since that is the most comparable game to Modern Warfare 2. And the first thing we'll look at is once again a C4 going off. And as we can see here, there's definitely still a fairly decent smoke cloud that comes out of this when it explodes. However, I did notice a couple things. First off, that smoke cloud doesn't spread out nearly as much as in Modern Warfare 2. So even at the worst point of visibility, it's not going to be nearly as punishing as Modern Warfare 2. But more importantly, let's talk about the duration of this visibility loss. It's at about the 1.4 second mark where we can start to see through that smoke. This is where it's starting to fade away enough that you'd be able to make out an enemy character model on the other side of it. Whereas if we remember back to the Modern Warfare 2 example, this was about 3 seconds when we got to this point. So based on this, it appears it's fading away roughly twice as fast in Modern Warfare 2019 compared to Modern Warfare 2. And back in that game, my brain never really registered this as an issue or a complaint. It was never something I even thought of because it just felt natural and normal with the gameplay pacing. I never really registered it as a problem. But next, let's have a look at the cruise missile comparison between these two games. And one thing I'll give them credit for is at least they sped up the cruise missile animation a little bit in Modern Warfare 2. But when we look at the overall smoke effect, I started the timer the moment the bombs exploded here. You can see this is a night and day difference between Modern Warfare 2019 and Modern Warfare 2. In fact, in Modern Warfare 2019, while there was obviously a smoke effect when a cruise missile went off, you could still see through it fairly well. Even right after it explodes, you could still make out enemy targets through that smoke. You might have a bit of a harder time seeing them, but you could see them. Whereas in Modern Warfare 2, not only does this cover a massive area of the map, it's also impossible to see through the smoke for a fairly long period of time. Now, perhaps this is completely intentional design. Maybe they really wanted more of this smoke effect to take place. Maybe they wanted that extra perk for calling in a lethal kill streak, like a cruise missile or a mortar strike, for instance. But to me, this just doesn't seem to fit with a Call of Duty game. I just find that it feels weird that I often find myself just having to wait for that smoke to dissipate before I can do anything in the game. And it's one thing if it's a smoke grenade where people are using that with the specific purpose of cutting off a sightline for a period of time. It's another thing when it's just an additional side effect of a random explosion on the map. And the best way I can describe this is kind of what I've already said. When I was playing Modern Warfare 2019, it just felt natural. It felt like it fit the pacing of the game, and this never entered my mind as a potential issue because it fit with the pacing. Whereas in Modern Warfare 2, I feel like this additional smoke effect for all explosions doesn't fit with the pacing of the game, and it just seems like an unnecessarily long, lingering smoke animation that shouldn't be present outside of actual smoke grenades. And speaking of additional benefits of explosives in this game, I did want to talk about another thing that I haven't really felt is worth making an entire video about, but I think this is a good place to bring this up. What's up with the movement penalty when you take damage from explosives in this game and survive, especially if you're using the Bomb Squad perk? In this game, unlike any other Call of Duty game that I'm aware of, when you take explosive damage and survive, you're unable to sprint for 2 seconds, even if you were already sprinting before you took that damage. And to me, this is yet another situation where I'm just scratching my head, like, why is this a part of the game? What does this add to the gameplay experience? And why do explosives need this additional benefit on top of the fact that they can just blow you up? I find it even more frustrating when you're actively using the Bomb Squad perk, so you're using the thing that's designed to counter the explosives. And sure, you may be able to survive that initial explosive, but now you're kind of locked in place for a couple seconds, unable to really move effectively and get to cover effectively, and you're basically a sitting duck for the enemy player that just tried to blow you up and failed. I mean, taking the explosive damage itself, I think, puts you at enough of a disadvantage going into that fight, because obviously you have lower health at this point. Why does this also need to slow us down and prevent us from being able to sprint? And just to be clear, I'm talking about this from a gameplay design perspective, not a realism perspective, because this is a video game, and realism should never trump good gameplay design and good gameplay balancing. And in my opinion, at least when we're talking about a Call of Duty game, this just doesn't seem to make sense. I think it creates unnecessary frustration on the receiving end of this, without really providing any additional sense of accomplishment or anything on the giving end of this. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for just a couple little nitpicky pieces of feedback that I have in relation to Modern Warfare 2. I know these aren't massive issues, they're not game breakers by any means, but I just feel like with Modern Warfare 2, there are so many little things that they've done, so many little decisions they've made, that in isolation might be kind of minor annoyances, but when you stack all of them together, it really makes for an unnecessarily frustrating gameplay experience overall, at least in my opinion. And of course, that's what this is. This is just my opinion, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about this in the comments down below. First up, do you guys think the smoke effects from explosions in Modern Warfare 2 are unnecessarily large and also last for an unnecessarily long duration? And also, what do you think about that second thing that I brought up toward the end of the video, where when you take some explosive damage, you're prevented from being able to sprint for 2 seconds? Are these features that you guys actually like and you're happy that they brought into the game? Or do you feel like the game could be better off if they made some adjustments to these areas? Just let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.